What's up guys, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be walking you through the setup and equipment choices on my road bike. Now it's worth noting that I'm not a bike geek or super into bike porn. For me, the road bike is a tool to race and get various jobs done. So if you're expecting some super secret hacks and tips, this is probably not for you. But if you're after some practical real life setup of how I choose my equipment, then I'm going to walk you through the decisions I've made in building up this frame. So starting at the top of the bike, I run a Wahoo Element Bolt, which I love because I've never lost a ride on it, which happened to me a couple of times with the old Garmin, so I highly rate that. Bar stem, we've got the Black Ink, well I'm running the Black Ink integrated bar stem. It's 130 long and 40 centimeters wide. They work really well, but on these I run, you can probably see that the hoods are slightly angled in, not full UK aero doggy spec, but just slightly tilted in. The reason for that being, I find it more comfortable on my wrists. Like if I bend over and just relax my arms and let them hang, my wrists don't sit like that. They're slightly tilted in, so I find that's the natural position of my wrist, which I like the hoods being slightly turned in for, so it's just more comfortable. I also run them slightly tilted up, so not parallel. Having them slightly tilted up is the more natural position for my wrist. So if you are getting some pain in your hands and wrist, you may want to try slightly tilting the hoods up and maybe in a little bit, which is, I think for most people, is a more natural wrist position. I'm not a bike fitter, so feel free to completely disregard everything I just said. What else have we got? Sticking up the front, brakes. We're obviously on rim brakes, Shimano 105 brakes. Why? Partly because I'm cheap and these do the job fine. And also, maybe it's because I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder. When I first started racing, I was sort of in uni, didn't have much money, so I ran an old Azuri, an Azuri Forza. Little nod to the old school coil on the old Azuri. I like having something that's not too flashy, so that when I'm hopefully riding someone off my wheel, all they're staring at is a Shimano 105 rim brake, which I find kind of funny. Maybe that's my sense of humor. Anyway, moving on. In those brakes, I run the Campagnolo, the red brake pads. We had the Bora wheels last year, and I found the Campy red brake pads amazing. They last for ages, and they also don't have much of that black grit that comes off them. So I find them really good. So they're Campy brand brake pads, but for Shimano brakes, which work really well. Saddle, it's a Selle Italia Novus Boost, which is sort of it's a rarer sort of model, not many people use it. It's sort of a cross between a TT and a road saddle. So it's pretty thick, it's got a big central cutout. And I've used in the past the common saddles like the Specialized Power Saddle and what's this Pro one, the Pro Stealth, and they just didn't work for me. I think it's because they were too wide at the front. And the other thing is, on the Power Saddle, it goes from wide to narrow so quickly. So the zone which is the right width for you is so small, so I was constantly sliding back and forth, whereas this, the width here is right for me and it's longer, so it gives me more room to actually sit without just sliding back and forth, if that sort of makes sense. I run the same saddle on the gravel bike. I have a gravel bike, which I might get into a bit later. Okay, moving on, other specs. Gearing, now this is a Shimano group set on here, which is sort of a mix mash of parts, so it's an Ultegra crank derailleur, a Dura-Ace front derailleur, and then Ultegra shifters, which does the job well. It's a 5339 and an 1128 on the back. The 5339 is nice for me when I'm racing, but I did my first NRS year on a compact crank, 5034, and I find that's enough. So I don't really recommend getting a 5339 because it's just crap for riding, because you have to go down into the little ring so often. So if you're just generally riding around, I'd recommend getting a 5034. If I'm on this bike, I'm either racing or doing efforts, so it's nice to have the bigger front chainring, so I'm spending less of the time down the bottom of the cassette. Especially in Centennial Park, where I do a lot of my riding, it's flat, so I don't want to be wearing out the bottom couple of teeth on the bottom couple of cogs on the cassette because my chain rings are too small, if that sort of makes sense. So I find, for me, the 5339 is good because I spend more time up the back of the cassette. What else? Wheels. These are Vision Metron 40s. The Vision wheels we'll be using for the rest of this year and probably next year as well. And the big thing with these is they're set up tubeless. Now, I'm like a no fuss guy. I don't like messing around, but for me, the tubeless has been a total game changer. So these have the Maxxis High Road TR tires on them, and the tubeless has been amazing. I run this bike as it is for training and racing. I don't change anything, and having the tubeless there is, I hardly ever get punctures, and I found the setup to be quite easy and not too difficult. So for me, I would never go back to clincher tires. The tubeless has been a total game changer. What else? Chain. So I'm into low maintenance, low fuss, and for me, I use squirt lube. But it's really important, the process of when you first apply that to the chain is important. So I do a proper big degreasing process where I use mineral terps and metho and the whole process there of sort of flush outs to get the chain completely clean before I first put the squirt lube on. And then once I've done that, which I've already done in this chain, I will not degrease this chain at all. It's just dry rag. When it needs it, reapply the squirt lube, and I'll just repeat that process until the chain is worn out, and then I'll just replace it. And that just means I'm not mixing degreaser and the squirt, which is a wax-based lube, all together. It means when I go to clean my bike, I don't touch the chain. It's just a frame clean the wheels, and maybe rub some of the black sort of grit that builds up, the wax that builds up, sort of rub that off. Pedals, Vivero, Asiomas. I've got a set of the Duos on my road bike, a set of the Duos on the gravel bike. They are amazing. If you are buying a power meter, just get the Asiomas. Yes, you have to move the look cleats, which I can kind of see that being a little bit annoying, but it's worth it. They are absolutely spot on. Accuracy-wise, the bearings I replace sort of once a year, which isn't that hard to do. And to me, the Asiomas have completely changed the power meter market. They are absolutely amazing and very good value. Anything else interesting? Oh, other little thing. If you're on Shimano DR2, set up there's these little clicky buttons up in the top of the hoods. Set them up so that they move the derailleur. So I haven't done it yet on this bike, but it's really annoying me because I have it on the gravel bike, I have the left shifter set up so when I press that, it goes to an easier gear in the back, and then the right one, so when I press that, it goes to a harder gear in the back, sort of like SRAM ETAP does. So if you've got these, if you've got DR2 and you haven't set these up yet, take it to the bike shop and get them to set that up. It's really useful. I find, like, especially if I'm doing efforts, that's a natural sort of position to me to have my thumb up there. While I'm up at the hoods, other thing I do is when I set up my brake levers, you can probably see that the reach is quite close to the bar. So I've got these almost all the way maxed out in terms of the reach adjustment. So naturally they would probably be out here, but I've pulled the reach adjustment in so they're closest to the drops. That way it's just better for cornering and bike handling. And I don't have particularly small hands. I've sort of got normal sized hands, but I do find, like, especially for crits, for confidence, I can grab the brakes and use the brakes way easier just with one finger if the reach adjust is pulled in. So I strongly consider, if you're having troubles in crits, cornering confidently and braking as you need, consider bringing that reach adjust in. That can totally change crit racing for me when I use the reach adjust. Okay, this is a totally random, just smattering of bits. But, like, the other thing is mark your seat height with a whiteout pen. So I've got this collar on it because I don't want the seat to drop. It doesn't need it, but I'm just run it anyway. But underneath here, I've got a whiteout marking the seat height, just so if it slips, I know exactly where I need it to be. Same with up on the saddle, I've got whiteout marks marking that, because it's really annoying if you forget to do it and something slips, or you take the bike to the shop and they adjust something and you're like, oh shit, I can't get my seat height right again. So I'm going to quickly show you my gravel bike and explain why I have one and how I use it for training. I've got the gravel bike, which I use for probably, I reckon, nearly 60% of my rides I do on the gravel bike. So anything from an endurance ride, efforts, it's not set up for gravel. It's got like maybe I can do a separate video on the gravel bike, but it's got a 46 front chainring and just a normal 1132 cassette. So it's, and it's got the Asioma Road, the Duo pedals on it. So it's fully set up for training on the road. But that's part of the reason why I'm able to leave my road bike set up as it is, because I can use this bike, and this poor thing has had a really tough life, but it sort of bears the brunt of most of the thrashing I give. And then the road bike's saved for specific sessions and racing, which keeps it fresh. So for me, buying a gravel bike completely changed my training. It was really probably one of the best things I did. And yeah, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have one. It's been amazing. But there we go. That was a bit of a mess of stuff. As you can probably tell, I'm not that into equipment and gear, hence the sort of random nature of this video. But yeah, hope you enjoyed a little look at my road bike, and I'll catch you in the next video.